Welcome to Spirituality Through Meditation. My name is Brian Higby, and today I'd like to speak with you about free will and our life or soul plan and how that can be helpful and how it can be hurtful and how we, through our free will, have the ability to create the end goal of our life plan through our own actions. So, as I understand it, before we're born into human form, into the material world, our soul or our consciousness or our energy creates what's called a blueprint, which is a life plan or a soul plan for our material world. Earth is a classroom, and we are here to learn specific goals. So our life plan is given to us by our higher selves. It's a blueprint to what our life is supposed to be when we're on this planet in the material world. So that's first and foremost. You have to understand that we're here with a purpose. And we are the ones, our higher selves, give us that life plan. And our higher selves, again, are a higher vibrational frequency. So it's not, the higher self is not limited by prejudice, the idea of separation and duality that we experience here in the material plane and this dense frequency that we live in here on Earth and in the material universe. So the higher state of consciousness is a much wiser, all-knowing state of consciousness. It exists outside of the ego, which is the architect and the constructor of our Maya or our delusional world that we live in. So it's important to remember that our higher selves are operating at a higher state of consciousness, and we are the ones that set the plans for ourselves. Now, if you think of your life plan as kind of like a tree, think of it like the tree of life. And the trunk of that tree, that thick trunk, it might have some knots on it, might have some different bows on it, but for the most part, it's a pretty solid trunk. That is your life plan from top to bottom. Now, every time we make a decision that isn't in line with our life plan, we create another branch or twig or leaf that sprouts off to the right or to the left of our trunk, of our life plan. Those deviations, it's called free will. We have the choice to do whatever we want here on this material plane. However, the decisions we make that are in contradiction to the life plan that we set forth for ourselves will create all kinds of negative issues in our lives. Car wrecks, deaths, sicknesses, these negative, or just even living and working a job that makes you miserable, or being in a relationship that makes you miserable. These are, if you are living in misery, it's because you have branched away from the trunk of your life plan, the blueprint that your higher self created for yourself. So how do you get back to that? Well, a lot of it comes with meaning, feeling. There is spiritual free will, and there is matter or ego free will. And the spiritual free will is the free will that is put into place in that original blueprint when we create ourselves. The ego or the matter free will is the free will that we choose based on our five senses, our conscious five senses: taste, touch, smelling, seeing, hearing. And those are very seductive because there's feeling there. There's visceral experience there. And it's understandable that we would get pulled away from our life plan in one direction or another because something feels good. But ultimately, that feeling good is not what we're here for. I mean, we should be experiencing everything, but our life plan is the thing that we need to follow. Now, there is relative truth, which is personalized to your experience in the material world. It's finite truth. And that oftentimes has a tendency to pull that free will into the material plane. It makes it more limited. The absolute truth is infinite, and it's part of what your DNA, it's part of what your original blueprint for your life plan was. So, I mean, it's always important to stay true to that life plan, because the life plan is the thing that we're here to live through. And remember, the brain is just an interface for the absolute state or source. Consciousness is a mind filter. So the brain is kind of like a firewall, and the brain can do a lot to prevent the blueprint, the life plan, to going according to plan. Now, if you're consistently beating, yourself up about, bad decisions and stuff like that, the biggest thing is you've got to have the faith to go with your gut. And it's very, very difficult, especially if you've got a family and you've got bills to pay. These are all illusions. These are all preconceived illusions that you have set up for yourself. They are trials, they are tribulations, they are challenges. There's something that my cousin and I created. We wrote a novel. We've written several novels, but we wrote a novel a couple of years ago called Shack Road. And it was about two things. One is called the Mind Labyrinth, and one is called the Mind Maze. And the Mind Labyrinth is kind of like the life plan. There are challenges, there are obstacles, but if you match those challenges and those obstacles, and you follow your gut, you follow your heart, you will end up where you were meant to be, and you won't reincarnate. You won't cycle around. However, there's something called the mind maze, and the mind maze has drop-offs, it has dead ends. You can be stuck in there indefinitely. And the mind maze is responsible for mental illness, for depression, for anxiety. And the mind maze is ultimately a reconstruct of your life plan by negative decisions that branch too far off from your original trunk tree. And it's very important, and it's the thing is, most of those decisions that are made that branch off in that direction are usually ego-based, and they're materialistic-based, and they're finite-based. But what you have to remember is you're not a finite being. You are an eternal being experiencing a finite life on this planet. And you have set a goal for yourself, a blueprint of life plan that you need to follow. And if you're not going to follow it in this life, you're going to be, karmically forced to follow it in the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. And remember, we're energy beings. We are eternal. This could go on indefinitely unless you make those choices. And the choices are simple. They're intuition. What feels right, not what feels good. Not what feels good, not what feels pleasurable, but what feels right. We have a conscience, and we should follow that conscience, because the conscience is a roadmap for your life plan. Now, free will has to align with Dharma. And Dharma, as I understand it, is defined as behaviors that are in harmony with the order and custom that sustains life. We give ourselves life in the material world through dense frequencies, vibrational frequencies. We give ourselves a blueprint, a life plan, and we have free will to enact that plan. But if we're not working in harmony with that life plan, we're not working in harmony with our Dharma. If we're not working in harmony with our Dharma, we will reincarnate and we will be forcing ourselves to do it over and over and over. And it's not an external source that's forcing us. Our higher self is telling us, this is what you're here to do. Do it. Because we're trying to experience existence. Energy, source, is trying to experience a specific life. You are an extension of source. You are source. You might seem like a different, separate being, but you're not. You are source. You are just operating on a different frequency. And source will never end because there is an infinite amount of realities that it can experience of itself. You are one of those realities. You have preset a plan for that reality. And until you achieve that, you're in trouble because you're going to just reincarnate over and over. That's free will. Again, you have the choice to do that. But again, as above, so below. As the higher states of consciousness are above, which is non-dual, non-separation, non-judgmental, full of compassion, full of love, full of unity, full of knowing, there is no ego outside of the physical world. Matter is ego. Ego is a thing that we use to construct our material world, our ideas. And that's where we're pulled away from source. We're pulled away from knowledge because we start thinking. And once you start thinking, you're pulled away from true knowing. It's the true state that you want to be in. But in order to get back to that true state, we decide to give ourselves life plans so that we can experience life. We can self-actualize through matter. That's what energy wants. That's what source wants. It witnesses itself. It self-actualizes through cloaking itself in matter. And each one of us, myself included, Brian Higby, I am just cloaked matter over source. That's it. And once you recognize that energy and matter together creates your finite and your infinite experiences, if you trust your life plan and you follow that through your intuition, what is right, what feels right, not what feels good, not what you desire, but what feels right. Follow that life plan to the end. And like that mind labyrinth, you will reach the end. You will have all kinds of challenges. But in the end, if you keep the faith in that life plan, and you don't branch off to all these other branches and leaves and twigs and all that from your trunk, your tree trunk, you will be back to source at the end. And you won't have to keep cycling around. You won't have to feel the misery of decisions that pull you away from that source. So that's it in a nutshell. That's free will in a nutshell. And maybe next time we'll talk a little bit about entropy and matter and how time affects that entropy and matter. But for now, just remember, you have a life plan that you set for yourself at a higher state of consciousness, a more understandable, knowledge-based state of consciousness, and you just have to fill it. If you fulfill, you follow that path, and you do what feels right to you, then you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. And when I say it feels what's right to you, it's what's right for the plan you set for yourself. It doesn't mean it's ethically or morally right. It just means it's right for the plan that you set. There are evils out there. There are disasters. There are tornadoes. There are horrible things. There are crazy killers. There are all kinds of things. But these are life plans that may have been preset for these people to follow, or maybe it's the antithesis. Maybe those disasters occur because they're not following a life plan. That I don't have the answer to, but the life plan is the key. And in order to reconnect, I always recommend meditation. I've said it many times in previous videos. You go into a meditative state. You do contemplation work where you come up with the desires through need. You do a visualization kind of mental storyboard so that you can talk to your consciousness and your mind, because it's a visual, picture-based language, not a letters or numbers-based language. It's a visual, picture-based language. So in this, all meditation, deep diving is essential for opening up those synchronicities that help keep you on the path. Because there are, your higher self wants you to succeed. And that higher self will connect with you and will put those synchronicities in life. You have the free will to recognize those synchronicities or reject them. That's entirely up to you. That's free will. So, thank you again for listening, and I will see you in the next one.